Hello, my name is Mompoloki Mogobe. I'm the host of this wonderful show of ours, Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We come to you every twice a week now, and our objective is to bring you, empowering, energizing, and impactful content each and every time. And I'm lucky this time around to have someone who's become more or less a regular guest. My guest today is Mr. Mogomotsi Patrick France. And we're coming to talk to you about a very, very interesting subject. But let me give him a chance first to reintroduce himself to the listeners.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mogobe.
Yeah.
Like you said, my name is Mogomotsi Patrick France. I'm the founder and director of a company called Key Wealth. We started the company in 2014. We're over 6 years now. We specialize in training, advisory, and risk management. In actual fact, when times are like this in COVID, where there's so much uncertainty, that's when we come in and assist people, because we do counseling, restructuring counseling, retrenchment counseling. We also do training, which is accredited by BQA.
Let's talk about this retrenchment counseling.
Yeah.
I'm not interrupting you, I hope.
Yeah.
To clarify, because I'm told that under the state of emergency, SOE, you cannot retrench. So
Yes.
Are there companies that are having to retrench notwithstanding the state of emergency?
You know what? State of emergency, yes, you can't retrench, but we can't deny the fact that companies are overstretched when it comes to their finances. Incomes have not been coming in for a while. So we might see retrenchments beyond the state of emergency, that is after September the 31st or 30th, somewhere there, where now companies are realigning. Restructuring and retrenchments are kind of what's been happening over time. But I think there might be more after the state of emergency, just because companies are overstretched and over-leveraged.
Let's introduce the subject for the day. We're going to talk about owning the economy. And this is a topical subject where you see a situation where, as a result of COVID, it's becoming clearer and clearer that the indigenous Botswana and black Botswana do not own much of the economy. And it's a topical subject. I'd like you to really explain what it is so that when we discuss it, people understand the subject.
Yeah, it's very, very important for us to really, understand this, because I've seen and I've heard a lot of people talking about owning the economy, that we don't own anything. We don't own the means of production. We don't participate in the economic system and the economic ecosystem, by the way. And we need to have the understanding of what we mean by that, and how can we then participate? How can we then position ourselves at collection points? By the way, I think the most important thing, and this is the question that I asked myself when I was at home, to say, when I looked around and asked myself, Palichi, who's responsible? Who's plowing the maize, and who owns the miller, and who owns the packaging? I mean, Skiripoto say, who's doing this? I mean, the Mulora, all the things around.
Even a toothpick.
Even a toothpick. It was a wake-up call. So then there are three questions that I might ask you, and why the toothpick is important. Who's feeding us? Who's employing us? And who's clothing us? Or maybe let me just rephrase it. Who's feeding us? Who's clothing us? And who's employing us? And you're looking at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and you look at the basic needs to say, as a nation or as a community, are we really in control of what we need as a basic need? Yeah. So owning the economy, I think it's a wake-up call, because with COVID, we realized we get a lot of things from South Africa, and we don't really participate in production of those things. Now Botswana are waking up and say, I think we can do this also.
Are we talking about ownership of the means of production?
I think both of them, it's encompassed in that, because it's ownership of the means of production, but also ownership of the economy as a whole, in terms of all the sectors of the economy and all the value chains that are involved.
Okay, we've just unpeeled one layer of the onion. Let's peel another one, go deeper, to understand the geography and the population spread in Botswana.
Yeah, I think maybe we haven't discussed. I wanted to first.
Oh, you haven't completed, yes.
Yeah, as we introduced the topic, I think I was still introducing the topic. I wanted to go into the history.
Oh, I see. Okay,
because we haven't covered that part.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yes, because I think before we even want to own the economy, and we even want to own the means of production, we first of all need to understand where we come from and what made us become the people we are. I mean, we always say Botswana entitled, but what made them entitled? We always talk about us not really, like we were saying, owning the means, but who owns them then? Who's making that money? Now, I want to take you back for you to understand that if you look at history will tell you that we were never part of the means of production. Because if you look in 1884, when the European countries were sitting down and they were saying, we're going to divide Africa and we're going to rule like
The
they
Berlin
never
Conference.
The Berlin Conference in Germany. We're going to rule Africa like it never existed. And when they came here, remember, the agri-revolution was in the 1700s. And the Industrial Revolution was in the 1800s. And they came here to colonize us in the 1800s. So now when they came in, they found us. We had evolved ourselves. I mean, they didn't teach us how to domesticate, didn't teach us how to start fire. So we were really people that were kind of sustainable, self-reliant in what we did. But then obviously they came in and they enslaved us. And the mentality is what then changed, because we went from not being able to produce
You
to
have
now
to explain
having to
when they
work.
say they enslaved us. You don't mean physical enslavement. You mean
Physical
economic.
slavery happened. I mean, if you even look back in history in 1652 when Jan van Riebeeck came to South Africa, and then that's when he started now, when he bought spices from India towards and taking them to the European
Markets, yeah.
European markets, and that's where slavery of Africans, and even in the West Africa, slavery, people were taken and became slave all over. But I just want to focus on one thing, because I wanted you to appreciate how history is in terms of how it influenced us, even here as Botswana, why we are not part of the means of production. Because here's the thing. I was talking about the Berlin Conference, that they came and divided Africa, and now we are colonized by the British. So all the time, like I was saying, they were in the Industrial Revolution. So they came here and they took us to work in the industries. So we're not even owning those industries. We're working as slaves in those industries. So we never...
Well, I don't like you saying slaves. Maybe we're employed, but maybe not paid what we're worth, I think.
I think the hard truth, the truth is hard to swallow.
Slavery sounds very harsh.
But it's true that it happened.
Okay.
It happened.
Okay.
It happened. And then, maybe just fast forward, you realize that, if you remember what Kwame Nkrumah was saying, when Ghana took independence in 1957, he said the independence of Ghana is not the independence of Africa. Why? Because Africa was still divided. And I think even up to now, we're still divided. Number one, we're not part of the means of production. Number two, we're still divided. And when we come to Botswana now, we realize that in 1966, when we took independence, if you think of it, agriculture was the number one contributor to GDP. It contributed 14.5 million at that time. Imagine money, 14.5 million at that time. But right now it's contributing less than 2%. And as Botswana, remember we took independence in 1966? 1969 we found diamonds, or Botswana was established at that point. So it's like now, you imagine a child who's given so much wealth, they forget that they were never part of the means of production. So now everything was paid for us, school was paid for us, everything was there in a silver platter, because we found the mineral that gave us so much money. And now we're here as people, we don't even understand how to create, how to produce. And at that time, companies such as Unilever, for example, had already positioned themselves.
So you think diamonds were both a blessing and a curse?
It was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you see, right now we are so educated, but we can't produce, and that's the problem. Because then we never really were part of the industrial revolution. When the world was going through agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, for now we're still, if I'm not going to use the word slaves, we're still working under the colonial era. So we're
still an agrarian society. We never really had a chance to understand the industrial revolution or be part of it
be part of it. Be part of it. The only people that, if you remember, we're used to stories of people going to the mines to work, people being, that's the thing, because we were only workers. We were never really owners and understanding how it is to produce.
Let's talk about the geography and the population spread, how it contributed to this situation.
Yeah, so in that sense, contributing is an issue of, I think here I wanted to, for Botswana to understand, if you talk about owning the economy, we need to really understand, now we're in a situation, what do? We can't be talking about problems all the time. We need to appreciate history, yes, but now we're here, what do? So the reason why I say we need to understand how Botswana is, if you look at Botswana, there's the eastern soils, right? And most of the villages are on the eastern side. And if you look at Botswana is about 581,000 kilometers squared. That's the area. And Gaborone is 169 kilometers squared. It's small. In comparison, Harare is 960 kilometers squared. And Singapore, it's a city-state with 5.6 million people, is 719 kilometers squared. So I'm going to show
even smaller than the area occupied by Gaborone.
Gaborone is too small. It's just 169 kilometers squared. The reason why I'm comparing is to show you that we need to open our mind.
You're excluding the environs.
Yeah, the metropolitan area around. Yes. The Gaborone, when you're from Block 10 and you go to village, you are done with Gaborone. It's just too small. But why this emphasis that we need to appreciate the geography and all that? Number one, I want you to follow the money, because if we are going to own the economy, we need to follow where the money is made. So as we are here, we're a population of 2.3 million, but almost half of the population stays in and around Gaborone with a radius of 100 kilometers. Why? Because over time, when we evolved, there was migration. So a lot of people, when they were staying in villages and they came to school, they came to Gaborone because of centralization. Everything is here. As we know, even when the Greater Gaborone is under lockdown, it's like the whole country is shut down because everything is really here. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this to make you understand that I'll say it in Setswana and say it in Setswana. Because when you follow the money, look where Madeira in places, in Palape, in Rapa, in Jwaneng. So even though the population, half of the population is in and around Gaborone, but that's not where the money is made. So if you're going to own the economy, you need to start figuring out where is money made, and how's the geography of the country, and where are people exchanging hands in terms of where is the spending and the income. So that's why I'm saying we need to really appreciate that and start thinking that we're going to make money.
But are you saying most of the industries and the commerce is not in Gaborone?
They are, but the question is, where will you look at the GDP and look at what makes money? Where is that money? You look at the mine. Where are the mines? Right? You look at where's the tourism.
You're talking in relation to the GDP.
I'm talking, and GDP shows you where the money is made.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, where is the money made? Yeah.
And then the third point, which I think we should discuss, is that who's really making money in our economy? In other words, who's at the center of the economy? Who's generating the most? If you like, what is the goose that is laying the golden egg?
Yes.
Economically speaking.
Yes. I mean, it's a good follow-up question, because it's following the question that we're answering, where is the money made? Now we're asking who's making the money. I've seen and I've studied this over time. I'm a person who travels because of the business. And I realized that places where money is made in Botswana are the most poorest again. And one of the reasons is that the people who are making money in those places are not from those places. So once the money is made, it goes away. I mean, if you take places like Maung, Kasane, you take like Letlhakane,
the tourist areas,
the tourist and the mining areas and all those, you find it doesn't show where the money is made there. Why? So then we need to ask ourselves, who's making money in those places? Is it us Botswana? Is it us the indigenous Botswana? Or we're just getting the crumbs? Who's making the real money? Because if we were making the real money in those places, then we will be developing those places. Because we develop places where we are from. I mean, if you look at Zimbabwe, for example, people that are making money in different areas all over the world who are Zimbabweans, they take money back into Zimbabwe.
That's why Zimbabwe infrastructurally is still growing.
It's still growing.
They've got some of the best houses, the best infrastructure, despite the economy being in the doldrums.
That's the thing. So ask yourself, let's take Maung, for example. Who's making money in Maung? And where are they investing that money? You invest money where you know that it's your place, it's your homegrown place, and you might go back at some point. So you might find that people that are making money from there are not from there. And the money goes away immediately when it's made.
Okay. Yeah. Does this go further in terms of looking at the structure of, companies like Dapswana, companies that are responsible for the lifeblood of the economy, in the sense that the ownership, 50% of the ownership is external, isn't it?
Let me not talk much about Dapswana. They are my clients.
No, I see. Okay. There's a conflict there. You can't.
Conflict there, yeah.
So you can't.
But let's now discuss in terms of. I mean, if you are, as you are saying, you realize that because we are, we're educated, yes, and we can't deny that fact. But intelligence is the ability to solve problems. Let's ask yourself, what are we educated on? And that's the reason why I started with history, to say that even the school system, the way it was teaching us, it was preparing us to sort of have someone employ us, not to create. So that's why we're not part of the means of production. So when you take an industry, a certain industry that produces something, the question is, are we equipped with the skills to be able to produce that? I'll take you in point and reference. I'm a person who reads and I understand history by reading it. Lincoln knew before he brought in multi-corporations like General Electric, like HP, all those companies into Singapore, he realized that his people were not ready in terms of the know-how and the skills. So he retrained his people so that they are ready to be part of the means of production. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe we might have to check our education. Is it an education that creates, or is it an education that only follows and waits for people to? Because
it prepares us to be consumers.
Yeah, because of also colonization and because of also the history. Do you know that most companies that are here in Botswana are not owned by Botswana? Most of them are still colonial companies. So that means what?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, if you think of it, do we have a homegrown bank? We don't. Like most of the insurance companies, where do they come? We have an insurance company that is owned here? Some of them are colonial companies. Some of them were our outside companies. So we are not owning even the funding. We're not even owning the production. We're not even owning. So we work in these companies.
Okay, let's pivot there. I don't want the negative energy that comes with discussing the problem only.
Yes.
I want the positive energy that comes with solutions.
Yeah.
So understanding the value chains.
Yeah.
That is the next point that we need to discuss, which helps us understand what we can do about the situation.
Yes.
Let's pivot towards solutions, understanding the value chains.
Thank you very much. I like when you say let's focus on solutions, because it's key, and I'm here to talk about solutions. Even though we appreciate the problem, COVID has helped us to, as a wake-up call, to see that we don't have these things produced here. So we need to start studying what is called the import bill, and figure out within the import bill and all these value chains that exist, who has positioned themselves in there, and how can we position ourselves? Why am I saying this? Like the example that I gave, Paleche, for example. Ask yourself, okay, this Paleche is maize meal. And someone planted the maize meal, so that means there's someone who planted the maize meal. There's someone who owns the miller, and there's someone who owns whatever with it. There's so many value chains and so many business sectors. I think it's time for us now to really start zooming into all these products that we use on a day-to-day basis, and start figuring out who produces them.
You need to zoom, no pun intended.
No pun intended.
It's time for zooming.
And then figure out how can we then position ourselves in actually producing those particular things. Because I think we can, and let's stop giving ourselves excuses of or we cannot.
Yeah. But in the short time that we've been with COVID really pounced on us around March. Does there seem to be any recognizable shift, or does it seem as if there's an awareness for people to now understand the value chains and to become part of those value chains? Have you noticed anything?
Yeah, so people are starting to realize the essentials, that a community, a sustainable community is one that feeds itself, clothes itself, employs itself. So that means if you look at the essential, people now are starting to question who's feeding us, are starting to question who's employing us, are starting to question who's part of the means of production. So I think people are now starting to wake up and realizing that we need to be part of this. And that's why you see movement like Pusha BW, when people are starting to say, no, let's buy from each other. And people are saying, no, let's really start being part of the production. And I think I see the positive energy within us, Botswana. And I think the more we do that, the more people we do that, the more we're going to now position ourselves in different sectors, so that we have indigenous businesses within that.
I'm glad you talked about that energy, because the next point we want to discuss is the idea of bringing your passion along. To what extent is that beginning to happen, and what's your advice as a consultant to young entrepreneurs, even seasoned entrepreneurs, in terms of re-energizing themselves and bringing the passion along?
Yeah, I think for a while we have this misconception that we need to follow our passion. But following our passion means you have studied something in school and then you go follow it as in it's a passion. While the economy but Botswana as a country needs us either as entrepreneurs or as people, to really bring our passion along to owning industries, because we don't own the industries. So the other point is that now I've seen, even me personally, I've seen people that become successful from what they have not studied at school for, which basically shows me that once we study the value chains, once we see who's making what, and we really want to be part of the means of production, we bring our passion along to doing that. We don't only follow, because if you were to ask everyone to follow that passion, I think most people are educated in technology. They will follow technology, but who's feeding them when they are doing that technology? So I think we need to really identify what needs to be done, and then we bring our passion.
So you're saying passion is overrated?
I think passion is overrated. I think a lot of people follow that passion, and it
I
never
happen to
really
believe
gives them.
that.
Yeah.
My view is that passion is important to maintain what you're already good at, but you can't just be deciding purely based on your passion.
Yeah.
What industry, what vocation to pursue. Yeah, passion is like the fuel.
Yeah.
That helps the car go, but it's not the vehicle itself.
Yeah, it's not the engine.
It's not the engine. No. Yeah.
So you need to bring your passion along instead of following it.
Yes.
Because you might follow it and it takes you to poverty.
Yes. All right. Now, let's talk about the idea of building indigenous enterprises. There's a sense in which established foreign-owned businesses, or even non-black-owned businesses, may feel threatened when Botswana say, now we want ownership. But I think that my own view is that it's not two opposites. It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
You need collaboration. You need to have foreign investment or non-indigenous investment, and also indigenous. So everybody needs to have a piece of the cake. They need to have a share of the table. I want to hear from you what your views are on that subject.
Yes, and this point exactly is a part of a 3-stage process of how we can own back the economy. But we shouldn't also forget the fact that, yes, indeed, we need other people to collaborate. If you remember what Paul Kagame said, he said Africa is one of the richest countries, and in actual fact, we don't need foreign aid. We have the money here. And people have been questioning and asking, why is it that Africa has so much money in terms of potential and value and all these things that we produce, but we are kind of the most poorest? It's all because
it's just a perception. I don't think Africa is really poor.
But
when we start adding, all the resources, minerals, human resources, untapped talent, and everything, if you add it all up, I think you'll find that in terms of a pure balance sheet, Africa is not poor.
Yeah, in terms of the balance sheet. But what about the households? Are people living? What's the gap between the haves and the have-nots? How are people employed? Are people really living a better life? I think they're saying it from that context, or from that angle. So you realize that the wealth is not shared amongst, because there's a few people that have got the wealth and a lot. But I don't blame people that have got the wealth. I think there's a wake-up call. We need enlightenment for those that don't have the wealth, that haven't participated in the economy, to start waking up and saying, this is our country, there's so much produced here, we can also be able to be part of it. So let's go back to what you were saying about
how to build indigenous
enterprises. And like I was saying, it's a 3-staged process. The first one, like you were saying, is building local enterprises. I believe that once we understand the value chains, we can then say, in a community, let's now start building enterprises and supporting the enterprises that are within us. If we have as many Botswana who are successful, we can then start up. I don't want to call it a revolution, but a proper evolution towards owning
Somebody
the economy.
said it's not a revolution, it's a re-evolution.
It's a re-evolution, something like that. So we need to, we need to enterprise. And we need to start as many enterprises within the value chains as possible. And like I was saying, it starts with understanding who produces, who feeds us, who's feeding us, and ask, okay, can I produce this to be able to feed myself and the community? So as much as we can position ourselves in value chains and start enterprises, that's basically what I'm saying about wherever you are. You don't even have to come to Gaborone to start an enterprise. Look around you. People eat every day. People clothe. People do so many things every day. So figure out how to build enterprises within your locality. Once we do that, then we have indigenous enterprises that there are many other ways in which we can scale them up. But at least let's start them so that at least
how do you address this mentality that one needs money to make money?
You do not
perception that
Yeah.
People need funding to start anything.
You don't need money to start a business. You need money to grow a business, to scale a business. Because the person who says you need money to start a business, what happens when they run out of money, or what happens when after they make the money, they start misusing the money because the end goal was the money. It wasn't growing the business. I think if we shift the mindset from thinking we start a business for making money and to we start a business to solving a problem, then that's when money is not an issue. Because going back to now answering that question in a way that is practical, you start a business. For example, I started Key Wealth with no money. I didn't get any funding. I started by selling. I used the skill to sell, generate the income, took the money, reinvested into the business, grew the business over time. Yeah, and then obviously at some point I'll need the money to scale up, and then we approached.
Yeah, because people don't realize that there's a danger in having the money before developing the resilience and the experience to know how to deal with the money, to know how to work with the money. Yeah. People don't understand that.
Yeah, but also at the same time, and they don't. They think no. You see, the challenge is people see businesses already done, and they think, oh, this business needs money to operate. That means if I start a business, I also need money to set up all this other stuff. You start small. But you also need to appreciate the fact that there are other businesses like production businesses that you need to buy machinery. If you're running a camera business, you need to buy cameras. You need money to do that. But for you to end up having that money, is the skill of being able to convince someone first, or being able to say, I need to be able to do this, I need to sell this so that I can generate income and buy this. You understand? So I think you can have a means to an end. You know that your business will need a certain capital, but how do you get to that point? Instead of saying, no, give me capital, let me start with the capital already. That's where the challenge is, because you will have all the machinery, all the cameras like this, but you still don't have clients who are going to pay you to utilize them.
Yeah.
So you see, you still need skills.
To do that. The importance of having a code of conduct, that's another point that you and I, when we were prepping, we covered. So can we talk about that, this code of conduct?
Yeah. So the reason why I said it's a 3-staged approach. First of all, we build local enterprises. We make sure that we position ourselves in the value chains. The second one is we have a code of conduct. And what is the code of conduct? I'll just give you an example. If you read a book, Capitalist Nigga by Chika Onyeana,
yes,
he talks about the spiderweb doctrine and the Jewish and the Indians and all these other tribes. They've got a system where the money stays within themselves. Now, the challenge we have here is that, like I said, people who make money here are not from here, so they take money away. So when I say code of conduct, I mean that we need to make sure that we buy from each other, so that money, when it's made in our communities, it passes through 5 hands before it leaves the community or the country.
If at all.
If at all.
Yeah.
So you should make sure that it doesn't leave.
Yes. If at all it has to leave. Yeah.
If at all it has to leave. And actually, what percentage of money that is made in your community, like for example, Mao, leaves the country? If 80% leaves the country, that means you are left with 20%. What can you do with 20%? But if you retain more
tourism
money,
is almost 100%, isn't it?
it's almost 100%. It's almost 100%. So that's the code of conduct, is that we buy from each other, we support each other. And and maybe just to attest to what we support each other in terms of our business. You just gave me a good business deal, because it's the power of collaboration.
Yes.
Yeah, and imagine if a foreign company was to be, because that's what we believe in. Remember, the history has shown us that to disunite and lack self-belief, that other people can do it better than us. But you believe in me, so you said, no, you can do it, and then you introduce them. So that's the thing. So let's make sure that
your presence here, the fact that this is your 6th or 7th visit, is testament to that point.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Money has to pass through 5 hands before it leaves the community or the country. So that and you can only do that when we position ourselves in so many value chains, that in each and every value chain there's a Motswana business. And then you consciously choose Motswana business before you can choose an alternative. I'm not saying it's wrong, you can support other people, but I'm saying we have to be conscious about it. Yeah, and deliberately intentional about this. And there's nothing wrong with it.
And have no shame about it. Have pride in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Other religions, other communities, not religions, other communities have a code of conduct.
Yeah.
They do buy from each other. Yeah. If someone doesn't have something, they wouldn't tell you they don't have. They'll say, I have, but then they will call another guy and he'll bring it along, and they make money, because money circulates amongst themselves.
Okay. Now, this one might be seen as controversial, the idea of funding politicians or having lobbyists to lobby, the idea of funding the political machinery to sustain. Can you break that down?
Yeah, as you say, it's going to be a bit controversial, but it's true. I mean, let's look at it's not only Botswana, America, in every other countries. Politicians are funded, lobbyists are funded, and once they are funded, they push the agendas of those that funded them. But so this is what I was saying. It's a 3-stage process. First of all, we make so much Botswana successful. And by the way, it's not a trickle down effect. I always see people thinking, no, politicians can solve our problems. No, they won't. They can provide a conducive environment, but solving our individual problems and making sure that we collaborate and make and build that resilience and build local enterprises, it needs us to be able to do it. It's a bottom-up approach. That's what I'm saying. We build
it starts from the grassroots.
Yes, we build it. It starts with me and you doing this and the other guys. If we build local economies, from there we make as much Botswana successful as we can, because now we're building something. We have a code of conduct that we buy from each other. After we do that, because now we want to protect what we have, we fund those that go into power. We fund those that lobby.
So there's nothing wrong with funding politicians.
There's nothing wrong with funding.
And encouraging them.
I think it's just not spoken in
especially when they're campaigning.
Yeah.
Because it just needs to perhaps have clear, guidelines and to be legislated.
So campaign is very expensive. Obviously, they get money from somewhere. So, but they don't get money from us because we don't have the money. That means they can speak for us, but
I've had the good fortune of funding one or two.
You fund and so you see if we're
I'm not sure whether that is money well spent. I never see the return. But we've done it. Yeah.
So here's my question: if let's say we have thousands and thousands of Botswana successful, and we have a community that we buy from each other, and within that community, because of the code of conduct, we want to protect that, and we want policies that speak to protecting that and then make things easier for us. That means we then fund whoever is lobbying for us, whoever is drafting those policies or those laws. That's a 3-legged stage. It's us becoming successful, it's a heavier code of conduct, and it's funding whoever is there.
I want us to talk about collaboration. You say that is the key, but before we do, in a previous show, I spoke to Mr. Bisau Gaubakwe. And he had this idea of empowering civil servants to fight a thing called civil servant sabotage. And this is a term that I've coined to say sometimes you may have the best ideas and best funding, best enthusiasm, and then you can't get a license because civil servants sabotage you. They keep finding things that are wrong until some people give up. So he says that issue can be addressed through creating enterprises where you can invite those civil servants subject to code of conduct, subject to whatever controls, to bring them in and have them participate in companies openly, in the form of unit trusts or in some funding structure that is governed by NBFIRA and so on and so forth. I wonder what you think on that idea.
I think it's a good idea, and I think it's what we need, and collectively, because you see, we are only stronger together. Because if you look at colonization, what it did is it disunited us. That's why Africa has got so many states within one country, within one continent. And that in itself, once we come back, and that has affected us even in communities. We work in silos, and we just want to be successful alone and want to be seen alone. So when a guy comes and say we want collective and we want everyone to have a fair share, I think there's a person who talks unity and who talks the power of collaboration, because collaboration is key. I mean, we put money in. There's a guy who actually gives an example, a South African guy who says the difference between Motelo and a bank is really nothing, because Motelo is people putting money together, savings and credit, and the bank does the same. They put money together, they lend it to people, and they generate interest. So when you look at it, this is the same. So the question is, can we put resources together? Because can we collaborate, leverage diversity?
In other words, can we have successful Motelo with safeguards?
That's the thing.
The kind of massive Motelos that they have in Israel. I think they have Israeli cooperatives. I forgot whether they are called kibbutz, something like that. I forgot what the name is. But they get together and they form large cooperatives and they're running big businesses.
We can do that. We can do. In actual fact, I think let him know that we as investment advisors, as Key Wealth, we can actually assist them in educating people and helping to do a paradigm. Behavioral change takes time, but because behavior, it influences the thoughts, because we are hardwired over time to look at things as in they are not supposed to be. So we are educating people continuously. So we can partner with them and to be able to continuously educate and show people that indeed this can work. Because when you talk about financial literacy and the ability to understand how certain things work, we can inculcate that within our teachings and make sure people understand. Because it speaks to owning our economy. How can we own it when we are in silos and we are disunited and and that means actually colonization has won. That means the history is still living, because with colonization, you don't need to colonize people physically right now. You colonize the mind, and once you have defeated them in the mind, they can colonize themselves.
Well, I mean, the Bible says a house divided against itself cannot stand. So it's true. It's something. It's all about collaboration.
So it's a paradigm. We need, for that to be successful, we need a paradigm. We need a mindset change. That means we need more Botswana to be awakened. What is darkness? Darkness is simply the absence of light. So when you talk about enlightenment, we're talking if more people can start understanding and start realizing that we're stronger as a collective, and the only way we can own back the economy is when we work together, not in silos. Because as Botswana, as we have realized, we like talking a lot about problems in different corners and never
instead
about
of talking about solutions. And this show is about solutions. Well, the last thing that I want us to talk about is, Africa is open for business, and perhaps we should look at what we've always said. We've always said this is a new Africa. We've always said African Renaissance. A couple of years ago, there was Africa Rising. So when is it actually going to happen? We've been talking the last 2-3 decades about the new Africa, Africa Rising, Renaissance. When is it going to happen? Or is it happening? We're just not recognizing it.
If I can ask you, how many Botswana do you think, when we are faced with a huge financial crisis, can go out and work in a different country? Do you think someone with a doctorate or with a master's degree can go be a maid in Zimbabwe? I mean, here in Botswana.
When things are tough.
When things are tough. The reason why I'm saying this is that we need to wake up from our shell of comfort to thinking that we're in this small box of ours and everything is well, and open our minds towards Africa, because even our population is small. Once we build these local enterprises and we have a code of conduct and we are able to support policies within our, so then we can expand to Africa, because Africa is open for business. As a Pan-Africanist, as a young African leader, I'm part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship, and as part of that, it clearly means that I know a lot of people in Africa, and I can tell you, Africa is open for business. People in African countries with millions and millions of people are waiting for whatever product we produce here to be utilized there. So we can then cross-pollinate, because then, when you say we don't have a market, maybe your market is not Botswana, maybe your market is Malawi, because there's millions and millions of people out there. And we're the same way, we suffered the same wounds of colonization, we suffered the same, we speak, we're black together. And now this thing of xenophobia where people think people are taking our jobs, I don't know why. If it's black like me, they're not taking my job. Rather they're hustling the same way I'm hustling, and I can go and hustle in their country. I'm not saying I'm against the other nations, but I'm saying I think I'm just more of Africanism, to be able to own back, because I think some things were taken away from us that we never really got to enjoy and appreciate.
I cannot complete a conversation like this without talking about COVID. Can we really with confidence say Africa is open for business when COVID has been like a wrecking ball? COVID has been total devastation to the economy, to the way of life. So how do we then maneuver around that and still get back on track? Because nobody knows how long COVID will be with us. Nobody knows whether there's going to be, light at the end of the tunnel. Of course, we are people of faith and we hope that things will change. But I want you to just touch on that as we conclude our conversation.
Two things. Number one, we had so many pandemics in the past. And this, when you are in a problem, sometimes you think that the problem will never end. It's going to end. And things are going to go back, maybe not to the old normal, but to some normal. So, and by the way, crises are caused by many things. It can be caused by terrorism, like 1991, or 2001. Sorry.
So
it can be caused by a financial bubble. like the 2007, 2008 one. It could be caused by a health issue like this one. But we also had other health issues that never caused the crisis.
Yes.
All I'm simply saying is this is part of life. Things happen. And in financial crisis, we always say there's a short-term one and there's a long-term one. So these are going to happen. So the difference isn't the crisis. I think the issue, yes, obviously we need to take care of ourselves, but what is it that this will teach us, and how can we position ourselves well? Because even in a drought, vultures still eat.
Say that again.
Even in a drought, vultures still eat. People still make money in this situation. And this now I'm happy for COVID. I think it has awakened us. That's why we're having conversations like owning back the economy and trying to figure out what is it that we can do. We've been preaching this enterprising thing for a while, and I think people are starting to hear.
Well, me and you certainly as entrepreneurs, we've been preaching the message now.
Yeah.
Hopefully now we're preaching to the converted. People are getting converted.
Yeah. I mean, at least COVID somehow, triggered some, something in them to be able to receive what we're saying.
Yeah.
What we're saying. Yeah.
Now, I would like you to look at the camera, Mr. Mr.
Which
France.
one? That one or this one?
Yeah, that one. And as a parting shot, say something inspirational. Leave them with a word of inspiration about how the listener or the audience can really, really take up ownership of the economy. Let's have a time frame. Talk to somebody and encourage them that within 12 months of today, if you do 1, 2, and 3, you can take ownership of the economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mogobe. I think, let me start by saying, we definitely can take ownership of the economy. The only thing we need to do is to be enlightened and have the know-how and understanding of how the economic machine works and how our economic machine, meaning in Botswana, who is making the money and how many times does money pass through our hands before it goes out. So I'm challenging you that you can do it. The only thing you need to do is, first of all, number one, go study the import bill, all right? Figure out where are we getting what. Everything around you, the basic needs, where are we getting them? Study the import bill. Number two, within that import bill, these value chains in all the sectors. There's so many value chains. Position yourself in at least one of the value chains. And what you then do is bring your passion along to that enterprise that you're going to position yourself in the value chains. And there's three stages that I summarized. The first one, in 5 years or in 12 months, as Mr. Mogobe was saying, what we need to do is, first of all, let's start as many enterprises within those value chains as we can. If we can do that, then we will support each other, because then stage number 2 is that we'll have a code of conduct that we buy from each other. As we buy from each other, we make sure that money passes through 5 hands before it goes outside our community or our country. And the last thing, obviously, will be to lobby and make sure that people who speak for us speak for what we are trying to build and protect it. So you as Botswana, you can actually do it. Let's enterprise more. I know we're programmed to be employees. I know not everyone can be an entrepreneur, but the few that are entrepreneurs, can we make sure that we collectively work together, not in silos, and let's collaborate more? I mean, we're here, we're teaching, but we're also collaborating. We're doing business together with other people, and we're making sure we're just a small community. Why not work together and make sure that we conquer the challenge that we have? COVID was a wake-up call. If COVID can't wake us up, I don't know what will. But I want you to say, to use the energy that you have, that at least COVID has given you, to really do it. You know, there's a saying, there's a lady called Mel Robbins. He says, if you can't do something in 5 seconds, you think of it and you don't do it in 5 seconds, you'll never be able to do it. Maybe for us, it's not 5 seconds. Maybe it's 5 days. Maybe it's 5 months. However it has taken COVID, the challenges that we've been having with COVID, that's enough to wake us up and to get us to realize that we don't own the means of production. We don't own the value chains. We don't own anything. Yeah. So we can do it, and I trust that you can do it, and I'm also doing my part, so do your part.
As we part, Mr. France, I'd like you to tell the people where they can reach you and what services are available from your company.
Yes, Key Wealth, we're here to assist Botswana in making sure that they get over the situation. But even if it's not the situation, we've been existing in teaching Botswana in issues of emotional intelligence or psychosocial support and financial counseling. We specialize in training, advisory, and risk management. So what is that in totality? We train you, and whatever trainings such as emotional intelligence, team building, customer service, several of those, when we train your staff, you will claim your money from HRDC. Investment advisory, Or financial advisory, we help you individually. We do have two kinds of clients: corporate, where we can come and help your employees in terms of their finances and also psychosocial. But we also do individual. You can subscribe with us on a monthly basis to help you with your finances. And lastly, we also do have an insurance broker, which we do life and short term. We can help you create wealth and not insure it. So we do have that. Call us or send us an email at info@keywealth.co.bw, info@keywealth.co.bw, and call us at 3980321. 3980321. And I also just urge people to also follow me on Facebook. My page is Mogomotsi France Speaks, and I also have a channel on YouTube. It's Mogomotsi France Online. Go and subscribe. Let's share more. Okay. Thanks a lot, Mr. Mogobe, for giving me this opportunity.
You didn't encourage them to subscribe to our
And please subscribe. Please subscribe. Subscribe. Just click the button, the subscribe button of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom. Make sure that you also click the bell so that the next videos this channel posts, you are the first one to see them. Because I really like the channel. It's got so much insight, and if we're gonna own the economy and build enterprises, we will learn. We'll have to have so much knowledge, and we can get it from Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom. So please subscribe.
Okay. It remains for me to recognize you and to thank you, sir. I really want to acknowledge you once again. You are a pillar of strength in this space, in the personal development space. Please continue doing what you're doing, and we really appreciate your services. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right.